This is episode 55 of Burnout Solutions, how you can use nervous system regulation for your busy life and what I do as a life coach to help you do that. Welcome to Burnout Solutions. My name is Mona Tippett. I am a registered nurse, a life coach, an emotional resiliency expert, and a mom. I love to help healthcare workers and caretakers and just busy, capable people understand their brain and nervous system so stress, overwhelm, and frustration do not run their life. Here on this podcast, we break down burnout, emotional overload, and survival patterns in simple human language. I love to give you practical ways to feel safer, calmer, and more present in your everyday life. You do not need fixing. What you need is support and a nervous system that knows that it's safe. Thanks for being here. Welcome back to the podcast. I am excited today to answer a question that somebody asked me the other day, and I thought, man, I should do a podcast episode just on this. And the question was, what does a life coach do that specializes in nervous system resilience? And I thought, oh, I have such a long answer for that. So today I'm going to talk about how I do that. In short, I help my clients build regulation. I help them see their own patterns of how they respond to stress, and I help them rewire those patterns to create a better outcome of behavior in their life, and I help them feel more fulfilled and successful. Now, that might sound like something that is hard and that takes extra time, and that you can only do in a perfect world, in a retreat setting, and not in a busy, full, overwhelming life or day. Well, guess what? All of my clients are high achievers, and they are busy, and they are full, and their nervous system sometimes gets dysregulated very easily. More often than not, it does, and that's why they come. They're like, I want to become more regulated, although they don't always know those terms. They just see their behaviors are something that they want to change. And I want to tell you that if you think that regulation is something extra you have to do, another thing on the list, most likely your brain is going to say, not going to do that. And that is exactly the type of person that I help. Because again, my clients are high achievers. They're busy. They do a lot of things. Their life doesn't calm down to fit in more. My clients often are managing patients, they are managing students, they're teachers, they're parents, they're in the healthcare field, or they are caring for others in some capacity. And they have a lot of things going on. And I want to tell you right now, you can become regulated. And what I do is I help them understand how they can change it in the middle of their really busy, overwhelming life. And I help them know how to complete the stress cycle many times throughout the day. And what that ultimately does is it changes the way that they behave. It changes the way that they show up. It changes the way that they feel about their life. And this is what I love doing. My clients often just get really excited because now they understand the process, because it is a process of what your body and brain are doing to create a behavior. It happens in milliseconds. And so we often don't slow it down. We often just see this is a behavior that I want to change. But there are a few steps that set the foundation of your behavior, and that is where I come in. Now, before I go any further, I want to tell you, I help people in two different ways. The first is I help groups of people. Most often, it is in a staff setting with coworkers. I come and teach you during your lunch hour. I come and do all-day retreats, and I go into all of this information that I have learned about the nervous system. This is not stuff that I made up. The programs and the material I use, I was trained in, I was certified in. For healthcare workers and teachers and those in the caregiving profession, this modality and this information has helped hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers since 1997. I am the only one certified in my region of the United States to teach this. And I have worked one-on-one with the creator of this program, Dr. Gentry. I have spent many hours with him. I have his number in my cell phone. We email each other. So unlike a lot of programs where it's just something that you're trained in, I was mentored by him specifically. The same with my life coach school. The creators of the material that I used, I was mentored by. So I have learned a lot from these people. And these programs have been proven to help. So when I teach in a staff setting, I'm going to tell you right now that probably if you were there, you would be able to spot the things that I teach a lot easier in other people. And you can see these behaviors and patterns that I describe and explain. And you can think, oh yeah, that's that person, that's that person. And although that is true, I do teach that you can only control yourself. And so we take it one step deeper and say, now look at your own patterns. And how are your patterns creating a way that maybe you aren't showing up right? Because when we show up at a workplace, we bring our dysregulation or our regulation with us, and that contributes to the workplace as a whole. Now, a lot of people blame a toxic workplace for being a stressful contributor in their life. Now, that might be true, but I'm telling you right now, a workplace doesn't create stress, right? A workplace is what? A building with rooms and computers. And if it's a hospital, there's beds, there's equipment, right? That in and of itself isn't stressful. It is the people in those workplaces and how they work together. And again, their dysregulation or their regulation that they bring with them, and then that spreads. And more often than not, these nervous systems are vulnerable to stress and dysregulated humans, and your nervous system picks that up, and then you share it with other people, and it turns into contagious stress. And so it's just a mess of dysregulated people working together, trying to help other people. Okay. So I then work one-on-one with those who want to take a deep dive into seeing how their personal patterns are preventing them from showing up how they want and creating their best life. I help them learn how they responded to stress in the past and why that worked, and how those patterns continue to play out, and how we can gently rewire them to live a more intentional life that feels less stressful. I would like to tell you that I can completely eliminate stress in your life, but I can't. I can teach you how to respond differently to stress so that it doesn't stress you out. And the more that you practice that, the more regulation becomes part of who you are and how you live. Just like brushing your teeth and going to the gym or any other habit that you have done is now part of your life. Okay, without long intro, let's go into this a little bit deeper. So the analogy that I wanted to use today with how I actually help people with their nervous system, I wanted to use a personal trainer analogy. I have been a health coach before, and I exercise. Over the last year and a half, or maybe 2 years, I have been working out with a really good friend, and she has been training for bodybuilding competitions. She actually has already done one, and she won 3 awards. She's pausing on the shows right now in the competitions so that she can build more muscle mass. And I work out with her. Okay. She is working one-on-one with a personal trainer, and she has specific goals. So often, if you have a specific goal, you do hire a personal trainer. If you have a specific goal, I am like a personal trainer for your nervous system. Now, there are 2 types of goals that most people go to a personal trainer for. Like my friend, she wants to compete in a bodybuilding competition, so she has specific goals. The other person who's more like me is, I want to create a stronger body. I want more muscle mass, but my goal is just to have a healthier lifestyle, to eliminate some of the pains and aches that come with growing older. Now, when you first start working with a personal trainer, they are going to interview you and get some background on what you're doing so that they can create a personalized plan for you, right? You don't just go to a personal trainer and they say, here is a workout plan, nutrition plan, good luck. When you meet with a trainer, they would ask you questions like, what are your goals? What is your starting baseline? What is your current capacity and ability to work on this goal? What do you enjoy doing? What do you not enjoy doing? What has worked before? What hasn't? They take a survey of other questions like, what is your sleep like, your nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's how they build a plan. Now, this is what I do, but with your brain and nervous system. We look at your past patterns. We look at specific experiences that you have gone through that may have had a bigger, more lasting impact on your stress response, because all of this creates your pattern and your blueprint, and that creates your habits, which create your behaviors. And I have found that it is hugely helpful to understand why and the how behind those patterns and why they play out. And that is why awareness alone can start to change a lot of things. Okay, so some people can often get stuck, or they just want a destination. They think that regulation is a place that you arrive and you complete and you're there. But just like my bodybuilding friend, after she put in all that work to perform at her competition, she can't just stop, right? She has to maintain that. She has to keep doing things. And she even is stepping it up more and more as she goes on for her next show. So regulation is something that we build over time, just like building muscles, just like creating more endurance. You don't just go to the gym for a week and suddenly become strong. And our nervous system works in the same way. These changes are gradual and often so subtle that you don't notice them. Now, I had a roommate and she just cracked me up because she had a boyfriend who worked out of town 3 weeks of the month away. And the night before he would come home, she would go to the gym and work out for like 4 hours. And she's like, I just want to look good tomorrow. And I thought, okay, working out for 4 hours in one day is not going to help you look better tomorrow. And maybe it made a slight change. It's still, not the best way to accomplish it. We need to do things slowly and consistently with intention over time, and your nervous system works the same way until one day you will look back and think, wow, I handled that really well. Wow, I'm surprised that didn't stress me out. Or, I had a really hard conversation that would have put me in a spiral for 3 days and I handled it fine. I can have these hard conversations without shutting down or getting aggressive, right? Those are signs of resilience. Those are signs that your nervous system is changing its pattern. And I love seeing that. Okay, so let's talk about 2 different ways that regulation is built, just to make it a little bit more practical. And I'm going back to our personal trainer example. So my bodybuilding friend and we both do very similar exercises. And I would say you go to the gym, everyone can do squats and hamstring curls and bicep curls and sit-ups and pull-ups and push-ups, and that will help everybody be more healthy. But when we want to dial it in, we need a certain amount of weight, maybe a certain amount of repetitions, a certain amount of time that we need to do things to meet our goals. And it's the same with regulation. Both of these types of regulation are helpful and overlap and help everyone. But in certain seasons of life, you would want to dial in one area over the other. And I recommend that both of them will be helpful to you in creating more regulation. The first is just proactive regulation. So proactive regulation is just what helps your baseline. These are things that we do to set ourselves up for success. So these are things like sleep, nutrition, our daily habits of taking care of ourselves. These things build capacity These things build our window of tolerance. It helps you get stronger so that you can handle the amount of stress and the duration without burning out and getting tired. The second type of regulation is reactive. And these are tools that you can use in the moment, when your brain is spiraling, when you start to feel overwhelmed, when you're about to lose it with a patient or a student or a family member or even a stranger, when you can feel that your nervous system is in fight or flight or shutdown. Both of these matter. Both of these you need to do. But a lot of people only try to regulate when they're already overwhelmed. They're not really trying to increase their capacity, or they don't pay attention to that. And that's like trying to lift 200 pounds when you've never trained before, or you're trying to run a marathon when the only thing you've done is walked, a few hundred steps on the treadmill. So we do this with purpose, and we do this according to what is good for your nervous system. So let's put these two types of regulation into a metaphor. I'm a visual learner. I learn better that way. So I want you to picture this. Well, first, the polyvagal theory teaches regulation like a ladder. And when you are at the top of the ladder, you are in your zone of regulation. So I want you to picture that you are standing on top of this ladder holding a bucket. Okay. And every stressor in your life adds a little bit of water to that bucket. And over time, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier and harder to carry. And as it's harder to carry, it's too wobbly for you to be on that ladder. And you're trying to balance that water inside, and you want to drop down into the ladder to increase your capacity to hold that. So how can we stay at the top of our ladder holding our stress bucket? Well, two different ways. So one, we can expand or build our capacity to carry more. Our bucket could enlarge and we could get stronger at carrying that water. A lot of times when we are stressed and that bucket is full, it is only a tiny little thing that happens where it drops more water into that bucket and that bucket overflows. So it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. That's when we get snappy. That's when we get irritated. That's when we have a come apart several times a day, just because drop by drop, that bucket has already bursting at the seams and it can't handle anymore. So we either get stronger and increase our capacity of that bucket so we can carry more, or we drain water from the bucket. And this is when we let stress move out of the body, or we let a little bit of water out of the bucket, often before it overflows. And regulation is doing both. When we can use small practices that complete the stress cycle throughout the day, that is like putting little tiny micro holes in our bucket and letting the water drain out, because life happens in micro moments. And if we are more regulated in each micro moment, it adds up over time. How can we regulate in micro moments of life? I'm telling you, you don't need an hour-long routine. I wish you could stop and do yoga in the middle of your day when something stressful is happening, but you can't. And so all you need is a micro moment to remind your nervous system that you're safe. These are small, repeatable actions that you can do while you are working, while you are caring for patients, while you are caring for dental clients, while you're caring for children. And this podcast has offered several, but I'm going to give you more of a list about how to just poke little tiny holes in that bucket to let out that stress before it overflows. So I'm going to include in the show notes a download of a guide on how to manage your stress. And it has some of these tools in it, and it has other ones that I'm not going to talk about. So go there for those. And this podcast is going to share some tools that aren't in that guide. So use both of them. And these are just a few places to start. And I want you to choose one and get good at it, and then maybe add another. And these tools, again, are overlapping, help with proactive regulation, and they can help with reactive. Let's just go through them. The first is getting good sleep. If you can go to bed and wake up at a similar time every day, it helps your nervous system because it loves predictability. I know this is hard. I live in a house with 4 teenagers and we have a lot of things going on. One of my daughters goes to a class before high school starts, so she's up at 5 and we are too. If my husband and I sleep in, it's 7 o'clock. And that's just how our lives go. We wake up early. We try and get in some time to ourselves before our day starts. And we try and go to bed at a similar time. Now, again, this is for predictability. Do the best you can. If you lay in bed and you wake up exhausted and you don't have a good quality of sleep because your brain is spiraling out of control, well, I want you to try some of these others to rewire your nervous. I used to never sleep well at night, and now I do. It's so great. Which brings me to our second tool, and that is to create just a little bit of time for yourself to regulate you. I choose exercise. I choose saying my prayers, reading my scriptures, taking a shower. I try and do that before I interact with my family and go to work, just to help set myself up for success. So have a morning routine that is regulating, that is getting yourself up early enough so you're not running and stressed. The third is, instead of scrolling on your phone at a red light or in the bathroom, I want you to try taking a deep breath. I want you to try shaking out your hands. I want you to try anything that's grounding, like wiggling your toes in your shoes and being present. The more we can be present with our body in the present moment, it helps us regulate. So replace those moments of grabbing your phone with something that is regulating instead. Practice throughout your day releasing tension in your body. Notice where you hold stress. Do you have tight shoulders? Do you have a tight jaw? Do you have a furrowed brow on your forehead? Relax those often. I try and relax my body every time I look at the clock and there is an even number. Dr. Gentry said, relax your body 200 to 400 times a day. So anytime it's an even number, I find something that's tight in my body and I relax it. And this is where we just pause and relax and let that tension go. Number 5, one thing you can do before you go to bed or when you're stressed out is put your feet on the wall. So this is kind of like walking your legs up the wall for 5 minutes if you can. This actually helps your body feel in the present, practice feeling your feet on the wall. And that also helps drive the blood to your core, to your head, and turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. Okay, the next one, I teach this at the dental clinics that I go to, gargling. I tell them, if you have a patient that is anxious or stressed, just say, hey, why don't you go and gargle for 30 seconds and give them some mouthwash or something to gargle, because gargling stimulates our vagus nerve. So when you're in the shower or after you brush your teeth, just take 30 seconds and gargle. That helps tone that vagus nerve and creates relaxation. Okay, cold exposure. I have yet to do a podcast on cold exposure, but cold exposure, like behind your neck, washing your hands in cold water, drinking cold water, cold baths, or what I do, can help regulate your nervous system and set it up for handling stress better. It's purposefully introducing stress in a very safe way. So you could even take a cold shower for 10 seconds and then work up to 15, 20, 30 seconds. I actually think it's harder to take a cold shower than jump in a cold water bath. But choose whatever you want to do. But that cold exposure, again, can help regulate your nervous system. There's lots of science on this. Okay, the 8th one, move your body. Walking is so good. Walking is regulating. Bilateral movement, simple, consistent movement matters. So if you sit at a desk a lot, get up and move your body. After I coach my clients, I stand up, I stretch, I might run up and down my stairs a few times. I do some yoga moves. This just, again, are simple and consistent and can get that stress out of your body. The other thing you can do is push your palms together, really, really tight together, and then relax. And that tension and relaxation reminds your body that there's no reason to stay really tight. Number 9 is get outside during the day. I like to take a walk. I like to get outside as soon as I can in the mornings, get some of that sunlight into your eyeballs, and nature is just naturally regulating. So walk outside, point out the things that are beautiful, be grateful for what you see, make a mental gratitude list. And then the last one I want to talk about briefly is support your gut health, because your brain and your body are deeply connected. So when we eat fermented foods like kefir and sauerkraut and apple cider vinegar, I talked a lot about this with Brent in our allostatic load podcast. When we have a healthier gut, we have a healthier brain. So in wrapping up, I just want you to know that you don't need to do all of these. You just need to pick one and actually do it. Choose consistency over intensity. This is how you retrain your nervous system. I help groups of people. I help people one-on-one see their patterns and help retrain them so that they can change their behaviors. A lot of times we just see behaviors, but I want you to know that there are layers and layers underneath that behavior. Like, what nervous system state are you in? What emotion are you in? What thoughts are you having from those? What are those behaviors based on those? And what is the effect of those behaviors? And when we can bring it down and I can help you see where your patterns are, and also thank your body and your nervous system for doing the best that it has in the past, but now we need to retrain. I love doing that. I would love to hop on a call with you and help you with your proactive regulation, your reactive regulation. I would love to come and speak at your workplace. And that is what I do as a life coach who helps with nervous system resilience, as a emotional resilience educator. So just go ahead and reach out. In the meantime, use this podcast to learn about your nervous system better and introduce some small practical ways to regulate throughout your day a little bit better. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later. Every week, you're learning something new here on this podcast, and that is a powerful first step. But guess what? Information alone doesn't create transformation. True change happens when you start to think differently and shift the nervous system patterns that drive your behavior. As a coach and an emotional resiliency expert, that is the work I do. I love to walk alongside you, whether it's one-on-one, in a small group that you choose, or with your workplace team. I can help you retrain your brain and nervous system so that stress no longer runs the show. You'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Let's do this work together.